Have you heard or come across the word chroma and wondered what it's all about? Or maybe, what does it have to do with paint colors specifically? Hi everyone, I'm Lori Sawaya, color strategist and expert. Welcome to the land of color. In this video, I'm talking about chroma. I got an email from one of my 4 Pillars of Color students asking some really good questions about chroma. I figured it'd be easier to make a video to answer, and I could share with all of you. Even though Katie is enrolled in my online course, I thought you might enjoy being invited in to our conversation. Here's what Katie had to say. I'm trying to figure out whether different hue families present in a visually similar way when they have similar LCH chroma readings. I missed that part. Have similar LCH chroma readings. Okay, I got it now. For example, does a blue-green with a chroma value of 10 appear to be the same saturation level as a yellow-red with the same chroma of 10? The answer is yes. The scaling of chroma for all hues is intended to be perceptually uniform steps, and for the most part, that's how it works out. Knowing that this is how chroma works is extremely useful, not only for comparing colors, but also figuring out what colors go together. Because one guideline of color harmony is colors that have the same or similar chroma harmonize. Or you could say they go together. To see how this works, and actually how it looks, we're going to go over to the color DNA table at thelandofcolor.com. We have about 3,000 colors in the table as of now, and we're adding more colors almost daily. A major feature of the table is you can get really specific about how to sort and organize the colors. To help answer Katie's question, I'm going to sort the colors by chroma. In her question, she mentioned an LCH chroma of 10. A really handy color hack to know is dividing LCH chroma by 5 gives you an estimate of Munsell chroma. So if we want to compare colors that have an LCH chroma of 10, we divide it by 5 and we get 2. In other words, an LCH chroma value of 10 is about the same as a Munsell chroma of 2. The color DNA table displays Munsell notations, not LCH, which is why we have to use the divide by 5 color hack right here. Again, Katie's example was an LCH chroma of 10. If we divide that by 5, we get an estimated Munsell chroma of 2. And that's what I'm going to search for in the table. When I enter 2 and a decimal point, the table sorts out all the colors within that range. If we click the top arrow in the chroma column, it puts the colors in order, which makes it easier to find colors with the same amount of chroma. Or, you can find it in a chroma range, 2.0 to 2.12 or something like that. But it puts it in order for you so you can easily see all of the colors that are in that same chroma neighborhood. And again, the rule of thumb is colors with the same or similar chroma go together. Chroma is the thread of color relationship here. And it's okay if the colors are lighter or darker, or if it's a mix of colors from different hue families, because the harmony is coming from aligning the color's energy according to chroma. Okay, so here's the next part of the question. I understand why you prefer Munsell notations, which is true. I work and think in Munsell, but for interior design purposes, I'm just looking for a quick and easy guide to color specification. And LCH is so much easier since the Color Muse spits those values directly, and the chromaticity scale, I think, is 1 to 100. I've reviewed the chroma saturation colorfulness lesson a few times, but still don't understand how to read chroma scales. In the lesson, you explain how the chroma scale doesn't begin at 0 or end at 100, but rather is different for each hue family. Okay. This is a great question and also a common question. I think chroma is the most challenging dimension of color to understand. The chroma scale does in fact start at 0 for every color in both CLAB LCH and Munsell. The confusion about starting at 0 is due to the fact that the 0 point of chroma for a color aligns with the color's value on the neutral value pole, which means the 0 point starting color can be white, gray, or black. So it's still 0. It just depends on the color's value as to what neutral color is going to hold that 0 point starting spot. Or in other words, as defined on the Munsell website, chroma is the departure degree of a color from the neutral color of the same value. 0 chroma starts at neutral, but there is no arbitrary end to the scale. And here's more about that from the Munsell website. As new pigments have become available, Munsell color chips of higher chroma have been made for many hues and values. The chroma scale for normal reflecting materials extends beyond 20 in some cases. Fluorescent materials may have chromas as high as 30. Even though that's from the Munsell website and the specifics are about the Munsell chroma scale, the overall concept applies to the C-Lab LCH chroma scale as well, because chroma is theoretically unlimited. Chroma is a ratio scale, and in order to illustrate it, you have to choose an endpoint, whether you're drawing a picture of chroma in the Munsell or C-Lab color space. In the case of C-Lab, I chose to stop at 100 on the scale that I designed because it seemed like a reasonable endpoint to use. But again, chroma is theoretically unlimited. If you experiment on the easyrgb.com website, it's interesting to note that you can enter numbers bigger than 100 for chroma. There's also the css.land website that hosts an LCH color picker. Now, on this website, they chose to end their chroma scale at 132. So those are examples of chroma scales. If you're going to illustrate chroma on a scale, you have to pick some place to end it, even though there is no arbitrary end to chroma, because chroma is theoretically unlimited. Practically speaking, the C-Lab chroma range for architectural color design maxes out with super bold colors with LCH chroma values of, I'd say, 30 or 40. In typical color design applications, we're mostly working at or under a chroma, a C-Lab LCH chroma, of just 1 for the hues that we specify most often. Keep in mind that maximum color strength varies for each hue because each hue reaches maximum chroma at a different rate. Here's how that's explained on the Munsell website. The strongest possible chroma obtainable in practically non-fading color substances varies with different hues and at different levels of value. Yellow, for instance, which is strongest only when it is light, can be divided into more distinguishable steps of chroma at a high level of value, say the 8th, than it can at any of the lower levels. And the reverse is true of purple-blue, which is strongest in chroma at a comparatively low level or value, but cannot be carried out many distinguishable steps of chroma at a high level. This variation in maximum chroma at different levels of value is due simply to the vagaries of nature. I love that word, vagaries. Vagaries of nature. There is no one level of value at which all hues reach their strongest chroma. The level at which a hue reaches its maximum chroma is called its home value. But, this is a big but, this may vary in the same hue in different pigments, dyes, etc. Okay? Let's move on to the last part of Katie's email. She says, can you confirm that's the case? And she's asking about my 0 to 100 chroma scale. Because that is so much easier to grasp and very useful for quick comparisons. I just want to understand how to read the LCH chroma values I get from my color muse. Okay, I think we've covered all the questions that she had about Chroma. So moving on to her point about LCH Chroma values being easier than Munsell because the Color Muse app displays LCH. The reason why I teach both color models, Munsell and CLab LCH, in the 4 Pillars of Color course is so you have a choice, and so that you can have all the tools that you need in order to customize your own color workflow. If you prefer LCH, then by all means use those values. What's important is that you pick a lane. You have to choose one, Munsell or LCH, and you need to stay in it because you can't toggle back and forth between the two comparing the notations. And one of these days, I am going to launch an app that displays a Munsell notation right along with LCH. It's just a matter of getting that done. Because as I've said many times before, color notations provide an incredibly useful framework for the creative eye. They bring organization, efficiency, and strategy to otherwise grossly subjective, inconsistent, and chaotic methods for specifying color for the built environment. Color systems like Munsell and CLab provide an objective context. In architectural color, the most important question to ask is compared to what? Because color is contextual. Color measurements and notations provide the necessary objective means to intelligently compare color. A framework of data values is a lot more flexible than some people think it is. It's the furthest from prescriptive, rigid, or formulaic that you can get. What some people tend to focus on is the fact that the alignment of CLab and Munsell isn't perfect. The truth is, it isn't perfect. But if you understand down to the nuts and bolts how both color systems do align, then by default, you also have a grasp of the differences. And those differences are simply part of the process, and they're automatically considered in actual application. But that's a degree of wisdom that can only come from actually using and applying color systems to an architectural color design workflow. So I'll wrap this up by recommending that you practice with color chips and both Munsell and LCH notations, because that's the fastest way to get experience thinking color in terms of 3 dimensions, and whether those 3 dimensions are expressed in Munsell, hue value chroma, or LCH, lightness chroma, and hue, like you find in the Color Muse app. The reason I created the color DNA table is because it's not easy to find Munsell hue value chroma notations for paint colors. The table is a month-to-month subscription-based resource that's available to everyone, not just my Camp Chroma students. It's a public resource, and it doesn't take long before using a framework of notations becomes more like a reflex and how you navigate color without thinking too hard. So, thanks for the questions, Katie. I really love how you're digging into the course. And with that, I hope to see you guys next time. Thanks, everyone.